Okay, so I asked you what causes sea level rise, right? So what causes us to lose land mass due to sea level rise? What makes the waters rise in the oceans? Let's see what you guys told me. Global warming, for sure, melting ice. Global warming, melting the ice, good. Sea level rise, yes. Beldinger, what? Okay. Melting of the Arctic sheet, well, the Antarctic ice. Polar ice. No. The moon. No. Hole in the ozone a little bit, yep. Antarctic sheet, I like that one. Yep. Okay. So, yesterday we talked about air pollution and the effects of air pollution. Today we're going to be talking about water pollution, some soil erosion, things of that nature. So water pollution can come from fertilizers and pesticides used in agriculture, livestock farms, industrial waste, oil runoff from roads, septic tanks, and on-line landfills. So water pollution in Michigan is a big deal. Why? We have so much of it, right? It is like our main tourist attractant. It is the source of so much revenue in our state, and also it's what we drink, right? So pollution enters groundwater when polluted surface water percolates down through the soil. Remember that part of the water cycle called infiltration and percolation? Okay. So landfills and leaking underground septic tanks are also major sources of groundwater pollution. So if you have a leaky septic tank and it's going and percolating down into the groundwater, it's percolating into your drinking water. That's what you want to drink, right? Yeah, no. Okay. So when pollutants run off land and in rivers, both aquatic habitats and public water sources may be contaminated. There is, anybody know where St. Louis is? In Michigan. Sorry. Okay. So I don't know. So the Pine River goes through St. Louis, and they buried a bunch of chemicals. They, meaning Dow Chemical, buried a bunch of chemicals right next to the river. But they put a liner there that was good for like 50 years. And then the liner broke, right? That's obviously going to happen. I don't know what genius did that. Let's put something that has a shelf life and then bury toxic chemicals right in it next to a river. Anyway, so if you're familiar with Pine River and what's going on there, they literally, along the edges of the river, they have to remove like hundreds of yards of soil, and I mean like 50 feet down worth of soil. So if you can only imagine the process that's involved of dredging a river and then removing all of the land on the edge of the river, and they have to take that soil and they have to treat it, which means they have to light it on fire so they can incinerate all those toxic chemicals. Then they have to take that and bury it in another landfill so it can, over a period of time, become non-toxic. Right, Miss Lawrence? Okay, so think about that process. And all they had to do was not put it there in the first place. And all of that could have been avoided. And there's been cancer linked to it. People grow their gardens in the homes right next to it. People have had to move. They had to buy their land, rip up their houses, and take all that land out. If you can only imagine the process. To go there and look at it sometimes. They put giant pylons down, these big steel structures that drive them down to the ground to hold the river back so they can remove all this dirt, and then they create this big lake or reservoir slowly. So it's quite a mess. And that's like 45 minutes down the road.
They were actually doing that last year by FDO.
Where?
By FDO.
Okay, yep. So fertilizers from farms, lawns, golf courses can run off into a body of water. One of our major sources of pollution in Michigan are our farms and our fertilizers. And these increase the amount of nutrients in the water. Oh, that sounds great, except for more nutrients means more algae. And that doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Algae go through photosynthesis. They're kind of good for the environment. The problem is you get too much of it and they suffocate each other and then they create a dead zone, right? They remove all the oxygen from the water. Now, algal blooms can deplete the dissolved oxygen in a body of water, and fish and other organisms then suffocate in the oxygen-depleted water. This happened in Ohio this last summer. Did you guys hear about this? Like the northern part of Ohio, no one could drink their water. Remember? Yeah. But, like, just think about this. Imagine opening up your dishwasher and having, like, mold and fungus growing all over the inside because the water that was supposed to clean everything was contaminated. That's what was happening. Yeah. They were told not to use their dishwashers or anything because it would just create a big green slime from the water. That's your drinking water. But that's not Ohio. Ohio is more industrial than we are. Really, they're more along the way than Michigan by far, industry-wise. It's just they had this huge algal bloom that they couldn't control. Okay. So looking at the water pollution, we understand that it's part of that water cycle, right? You've got all of this pollution from both industry, from farm runoff, from the runoff from acid rain, all different runoff. Doesn't matter where it's from. Anything that hits land and involves water is going to flow with gravity into a lake or stream and eventually be part of our drinking water, our aquifers, and it's going to affect not just us, but every other living thing out there. Now, that's water pollution. So looking at soil damage, why do you guys think soil is so important? What do you got? What in the world? Why isn't my clicker working? There we go. Why is soil so important? We understand air, we breathe that. We understand water, we drink that. Why should we worry about soil so much? I'm jealous. My daughter's having a half day today. I know. Up north schools, you know, you gotta go get ready for hunting. I know. What in the world? Like, we live in Michigan too, right? I mean, come on. Right? They call it a safety day. Well, I understand not wanting buses out there on opening day, but the day before they still gave them a half day. Let's see what you guys came up with. Soil. Okay, yeah, you grow your food there, right? So we talked about what you breathe. Habitats for animals too, for sure. Fertility, okay. Grow food. Okay, very good. Yeah, I figured you copy and paste that. So most of you said food, right? Yeah, good deal. So yeah, we got to grow our food, right? So air, what we breathe, water, what we drink, food, what we eat now, basically everything you need to survive. Is Clyde, is your neighbor awake? Is he? Okay, I couldn't tell from here. All right. So fertile soil, we know, allows agriculture to supply the world with food, and fertile soil forms from rock that is broken down by weathering. That takes a really long time. Remember we talked about lichen, the pioneer species that breaks rock down? Okay. Nutrients that make soil fertile come from weathered rock as well as from bacteria, fungi, and the remains of plants and animals. The process that forms just a few centimeters of fertile soil can take thousands of years. To give you an idea, roughly 1 centimeter per 1,000 years is a good average. Everybody hold their pinky finger up like this, girth-wise. Okay? That takes 1,000 years. Right there. To get soil. Topsoil. Yep. Is that enough to plant anything in and grow a big plant to eat? So imagine how many thousands of years you would need. Let's just say you need a foot, right? Maybe. Let's just say a foot. Let's go with 10 inches. How about that? Okay. Let's say you need 10 inches to grow corn. You need more, but let's just say you need 10 inches. Okay. 2.5 centimeters in an inch. 12 times or 10 times 2. That's why I did that. So 254,000 years we need. Come now. We can't wait that long, can we? So we have to conserve soil. What? We can compost. You're going to compost the whole field to grow corn? It's a good idea, but not practical at mass quantities. Like in your garden at home, sure, it'll work, but to do a whole field and feed a whole country, no. So the greatest threat to soil is soil erosion. Anybody ever been driving down 75 and get caught in the dust cloud on a dry day when the farmer's plowing? Ever happened to you? You see that dust cloud come across, you're like, oh, geez. Roll up your windows, turn the internal air on. Yeah. So erosion is a process in which the materials of Earth's surface are worn away and transported from one place to another by wind, gravity, or water. Wind is the one we don't think about that much. But if you've got a big open plain, you guys remember the Dust Bowl? Yeah, that's what caused it, right? So soil erosion destroys fertile soil that we need in order to produce food, roots from plants, and trees help hold soil together and protect it from erosion. So think about Hurricane Katrina. When that hit land, was there a lot of roots and things to stop the soil from going away and getting washed away? No. Think about mudslides in California, where people have done a lot of deforestation and things of that nature. What do you get? You get mudslides, right? Okay. And so there's no roots to hold that stuff in place. So many farming methods can lead to soil erosion by loosening the topsoil and removing plants that hold the soil in place. And the topsoil can then be washed away by rain or wind. So what do farmers do to help prevent erosion? What do farmers do to help prevent erosion? Amanda Nash, you want to be borrowed? Hello. Just taking my students. See what you guys are coming up with. What do farmers do? They plant trees? Oh, along the edges, yeah, to prevent wind erosion, right? I've seen that, like pine trees. Yep. They cycle their crops. Well, that's for a different reason, but close. They plow fields to prevent erosion. They plow fields to aerate the soil. Plowing fields actually causes erosion, right? If you mix up the dirt, the wind and the water can wash it away. They do flatten the ground a little bit. They put rollers over it. These are what's called a cultipacker. It's a big, heavy weight. I've got one for my hayfield when we plant them, but it's like this big roller with these little gnarls in it, and it allows you to compact the soil so that it's not loose after you plow it and plant it. Does that make sense? So it flattens it out. Okay? Some of them do that. Some of them use what's called no-till farming. You guys ever heard of that? Where they don't till the soil. They actually have these little stabbers that stab into the ground and drop the seed. Okay? And so they don't till it at all, but it aerates, it percolates the soil a little bit. Change out the plants. Rotate crops, kind of. We'll talk about that. Trench rows, yep, so they control the erosion flow. They'll actually plow the field so that the water runs into another windrow and when it's downhill so that it doesn't, you wouldn't want to do your rows with gravity, right? And wash everything away. Plant more plants. Yeah, it's called a cover crop. Plant more plants that hold soil. They plant cover crops. Okay, so a cover crop is something like rye or winter wheat that you would plant on a vacant field. After you took, let's say, all of the beans off of it and harvested the beans and you plowed it, you would then plant something like grass or clover over top of it until next spring when you're going to plant it again. What that does is it actually holds the nutrients in the soil and prevents the land from eroding. Also, if you plant the right thing, it can put nitrogen back in the soil, right? And I mean, if you get it, the ribosomes, rhizomes, oh my word, I cannot talk. Rhizomes. Rhizomes are nitrogen-fixing bacteria. So then there's sustainable agricultural practices. You guys gave me a bunch of those. Terracing, that's like step farming. You guys all remember step farming, right, in the mountains? Same idea in a cornfield. This is where you will change a steep field into a series of flat steps. that stop gravity from eroding the soil. A lot of orchards are like this up in Traverse City. I grew up working on some of the cherry orchards and apple orchards up there, and they would create these little plateaus where you'd have a row of trees, and then you'd have a huge steep drop, and then another flat plateau of trees, and that's so you can farm a hilly area. Because if you put a tree on a hill and it gets a bunch of apples or cherries on it, what does it do? It'll actually tip over and deroot itself, right? So they do that in a lot of orchards. And then we talked about planting a cover crop like soybeans. It'll restore nutrients to the soil. And then you guys mentioned crop rotation or planting a different crop every year. That slows down the depletion of the nutrients, not necessarily erosion though. But in contour plowing, rows are plowed in curved lines along hills instead of straight lines. And the rows then act as a series of dams which prevent the water from eroding the soil. Which of these things do you do at your own house? Which of those do you do at your own home? You might not, but depending on what your yard looks like, it's a hint. You may or may not do this. Which of those things do you do at your own house? If you don't do them, just put none. That's fine. So I see the answer I was looking for was actually contour plowing, right? And you don't mow your lawn downhill, do you? There's two reasons. Safety's one. Well, actually, it's safer to mow downhill than it is if it's real steep. You tip the lawnmower. Anyway, but you mow it against the grain. And what that does is it prevents, like, your lawn from eroding and you creating, like, these little rivers down your lawn. So if you mow your lawn, so your tire tracks, because you do push into the soil, actually are against the grain of the hill, that's what you're supposed to do, it'll actually hold nutrients in your lawn. You don't have to fertilize as much, plus you don't get all that runoff. Okay. So ecosystem disruptions, how does us disrupting affect all of these things we just talked about, can result in the loss of biodiversity, food supply, potential cures for disease, and the balance of ecosystems that support all life on Earth. Now, we cannot avoid disrupting ecosystems as we try to meet the needs of a growing human population. The only way to decrease the fact that we're disrupting the ecosystem is to decrease our population. So we can learn about how our actions affect the environment so that we can create ways to conserve it. So if we understand how we affect our environment, then we can start to understand how we can decrease our footprint, so to speak. And I say footprint because we just did a carbon footprint, right? So part of you doing your carbon footprint is to understand how you're disrupting the environment so that you can reduce your disruption, so to speak. Now, over the last 50 years, about half of the world's tropical rainforests have been cut down or burned for timber, pasture land, or farmland, and this process is what is called deforestation. What replaces a tropical rainforest once you cut down the trees? What is the only option for that land that's left? Once you cut down a tropical rainforest, what is that land going to become inevitably? A tropical rainforest, if deforested, will become what? Put the answer in. Walmart. I've never seen a Walmart in a third world country. They might be there. I don't know. So they start off, here's what they do. They get the wood, right? Okay, and then they farm it. I like that. Initially, that's what happens. And then it becomes barren because erosion, right, and depletion of soil. The soil is very nutrient poor there. All of the nutrients are actually in the plant life above ground in a rainforest. The soil in a rainforest is very nutrient poor. Everything that hits the floor in the rainforest gets utilized very quickly. Now, they do farm, And inevitably, it becomes barren, like you said, and then, yes, a desert does form. Okay? So inevitably, the only thing that an actual rainforest can become after you cut it down, eventually it's going to be a desert. So the problem with deforestation is that the rainforests and other habitats disappear, and so do their inhabitants. Habitat destruction and damage cause more extinction and loss of biodiversity than any other human activities do. Do we deforest in Michigan? Yeah, you ever hear about somebody buying a chunk of land and building a house on it? That's what it is. You got to cut down trees to put a driveway in. You got to cut an area for your house. Look at the house across the street. There's a house in the middle of a forest. There used to be trees there, right? Deforestation. Look at the farm down the road. There used to be a forest there. Deforestation. Look at our school. There used to be a forest here. Deforestation. Now, can we prevent us impacting the ecosystem? No. But to understand that we do, and maybe instead of cutting down, more trees and building houses there, we could just choose a house that's already built, right, and maybe live there. We have more housing in Michigan than we have people to live in it, by the way. Hello. How can I service your educational need? Yay. He's not here. Just give it to me. I need a new bag. I'm kidding. Well, can you tell him he's not? I can give it to him on Monday, or you can come back. Yeah, tell him he's not here. Yeah, let's do that. Try a later hour. Maybe he'll show up later in the day. I love that we're giving away Monster products, which is like basically a drug in a can, right? I haven't either. But I've seen kids on them. They jitter and they shake. All right. So ecosystem disruption decreases the number of our species. We understand that. That's how we get extinct and endangered species. Biodiversity affects the stability of ecosystems and the sustainability of different populations. And remember, biodiversity is that variety of organisms in a given area. Now, how many you have, but the variety, the different types you have. Now, every species plays an important role in the cycling of energy and nutrients in an ecosystem, and each species either depends on or is dependent on by at least one other species. I want you guys to list one species that you are dependent upon. Other than us. Type in a species that you are dependent upon. I just ate a bunch of baby ones last night. I did. That, I see cow, I see piggy, I see chicken, Platypus, you eat platypus, okay. Bees, you got honey, yep. So you guys are listing food, right? I ate a bunch of baby spinach last night, the little baby. Yeah, yep. What? Not yet. Once we're done. Turkey. Ooh. Thanksgiving's coming, right? Somebody wanted me to go back. Do you think like a baby turkey would taste better? Maybe tender. Maybe I'll buy 2 smaller turkeys. That's kind of morbid, isn't it? What if you like put a small turkey inside of a big turkey? It'd be a turkey instead of a turducken. It'd be a turkey. T squared. A turducken. That's where you put a duck inside of a chicken inside of a duck or inside of a turkey. You gotta take the whole breast off of the turkey, then the breast off of the duck, and the breast off the chicken, and you wrap them in each other, and then you bake it. You tie them together with the kind of the. Yeah, you cut it like a turkey roll. So, when a species, we got a little off topic there. When a species disappears, a strand of the food web disappears, and if a keystone species disappears, other species may also disappear. So there are many ways in which humans benefit from a variety of life forms on Earth. You guys named a couple there. I can't do without cow, I'm telling you right now. I cannot survive off chicken alone. There's a lot at stake there, right? I'm not scared of it, but I'm not chicken. I ain't doing chicken. So there are many ways in which humans benefit from a variety of life on Earth. We understand that. And humans have used a variety of organisms on Earth for food, clothing, shelter, and medicine. So obviously we need trees to build houses. We need cotton to make clothes. We need all sorts of things to live. We get it. Other organisms. Medicine. Can you guys tell me, I'll just ask you a question. Do you guys know where aspirin came from? Where did aspirin come from? Get a headache, take aspirin. Where did that come from? Yep. Same idea. Where did that come from? I'll give you a hint. The Native Americans used to chew it. That probably is not going to help you. Well, it's not tobacco. Where there's a will, there's a way. That's a hint. Whoa, easy now. I said Native Americans, not Aztecs. Oh, man. No one had it. It's the willow tree. That's where aspirin came from. You didn't know that? Yeah. Yeah. What? The bark. The living bark. The living tissue of the bark. So they would chew on the bark, and they'd just like take a twig and chew on it if they had a headache or an upset muscle ache or something like that. And that was a cure. It works. There's aspirin in it. So humans have disrupted ecosystems by intentionally and unintentionally introducing non-native species. We call those invasive species. In Australia, it's rabbits, right? And here it's zebra mussels. We have emerald ash borer. We have the African grass that's killing our cattails or taking over the habitat. Yellow loosestrife. There's the gobies. And many species are on the edge of extinction. And we understand extinction as being the death of every member of a species. So we have both invasive and endangered species in Michigan. Yes. Yes. I'd have to look that up, but I know they removed mercury from our wetlands and from our environment. I think they're native to Michigan. Yep. So I threw this one in here. I wanted to just chat with you for a minute. So this is, hey guys, this is in the news right now. Okay? I just listened to this morning. That's why I put it in here. Up here in Canada, let me just follow. This is the current pipeline right here. Okay, that brings oil down, and then we have refineries, and we ship it out, and we move it around by rail and then by fleet and everything. This blue dotted line, please, ferme la bouche. This blue, that means close your mouth. So this it's French. This dotted line here is the new proposed pipeline. Let me explain to you why it's where it is. Here's what they want to do. They want to move oil from Canada basically to Mexico by bringing it to the Gulf and then piping it out to Mexico because it's cheaper to refine oil, and then they'll be shipping it out to other countries. So that's what they want to do right now. This is in Congress. This is like current legislation on the books. if this oil is just passing through our country, and it already is, and we refine it here, and we do make money off it, so this part's good, the red part. The blue part would basically be bypassing America because we're pretty expensive for refining oil. But do we take on a lot of risk at the same time? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's just Montana, Nebraska where we grow all our food. Yeah, no big deal, right? So there are political parties that are both for this right now, and it's both sides because they're getting paid by the oil cartel from another country to pass this legislation. This is right now. Both sides. I'm not a political person, but both political parties are taking money right now to get this passed. And I will tell you, in Michigan, we take Canada's trash and dump it in our landfills. Okay? Because they pay us. And it's cheaper for them to dump it here than it is to dump it in their own backyard because they have more environmental laws. So because of their environmental laws, they also want to ship the oil down where there's none in Mexico. Is this responsible? And is this, first of all, I'll ask you the question. Does this help us as a country? And you can say yes or no. It's kind of a mixed question, really, isn't it? Does this help us? And when I say us, I mean you and I. I don't care about the politicians, but does it help you and I? Okay. And I'm not even going to talk about why it might or might not. Now, if you belong to one of the companies maintaining that pipeline, sure, I'm sure it helps you. But if you're me, or you're like 99% of the population, it probably will not. Okay? We don't make any money off it. The oil does not belong to us. It just passes through our country, and we take on that huge environmental risk. So the next question I would ask you is, would you vote yes or no? I'll let you vote. I'll give you 5 seconds on this legislation. If it were, they do pay us, but I'm here to tell you they don't pay us. They pay the political party by lobbying them. So indirectly, yes, but really no. We will never see that money in a tax relief. No. So yes and no, but really no. How about that? So let's see what we say. So 1 yes and 26 no. So I will tell you, some people will blindly vote yes on anything that produces oil. And I'm actually for using the oil that we have in our country in a responsible way and actually refining it here in our country and using it here. But when we're shipping it out and we're doing it so other oil cartels can make money, that concerns me. And that's really why I would vote no. Because we already have pipelines in place for us to refine that oil that's coming in and ship it and control it. And when we take care of things in the United States, we actually do it under a microscope, which means they have people like me that care about the environment, that watch people and how they do things, and we educate people on it. Okay? And then we have people who want to pass it through our country so they can process it in a very dirty way. Okay? And they just want to get it to the quickest boat out of America or over to Mexico so that they can pollute. And that's literally the cause. That's what they want to do. When there's no EPA, there's no DEQ, there's nothing regulating emissions or anything in the process of them manufacturing or refining that crude oil. So this is the futuristic pipeline plan for the tar sands pipeline. I actually took this off their site. So I showed you, let's just hop back here, what we have currently. One main pipeline and a couple subpipes. Okay, probably enough. This is what they want to eventually expand to. Notice how there's one that sneaks over here, just kind of heads down and will actually take off and go over to Mayo. Okay, eventually. Yep. So they want to run this through state parks. They want to run it through refuges, reservations, all kinds of places. Okay? And there is one, and it's not shown here, there is one that is going through Michigan, I should say, and that we have to worry about all the time. It actually burst a couple years ago. And there was a huge leak. I believe it was over by Kalamazoo. Well, they're thick-walled pipe. They're anywhere from 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch thick. But they corrode. Everything has a shelf life, and yeah. They guess what? They don't fix them till they what? Break. So I just want to make you aware of right now. That's a huge issue that is on America's plate at this time. Okay? And the scary thing is, you and I don't get to control it. It's controlled by a group of people who are paid by people who are not from this country. And that scares me. They're all different diameters, but I'd have to look up what the main one is. I don't know that. Okay. So the air pollution causes respiratory problems for people, results in acid rain, damages the ozone layer, and affects global temperatures. We talked about that yesterday and the day before. The burning of fossil fuels increases the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. Increases in atmospheric CO2 may be present for an increase in global temperatures. And water pollution can come from fertilizers and pesticides used in agriculture and from livestock farms, industrial waste, oil runoff from roads, septic tanks, and online landfills. So there you have air, you have water, and then we also today talked about land and soil conservation. So soil erosion, we know, destroys fertile soil that we need in order to produce food. And then ecosystem, disrupting those ecosystems can result in the loss of biodiversity, food supplies, potential cures for disease, and the balance of ecosystems that support all life on Earth. I'll leave that up there for a second. So we're going to go over our results of our carbon footprint here.